This video is all about face retouching for thumbnails in Affinity, and the first step is one that a lot of people skip: upscaling your image. The next step is to mask out your subject. Use the object selection tool, click on your subject and it'll automatically select your subject, but it's usually not perfect. A quick tip: change the background color so you can actually see how clean your mask is. For me, there was a white outline around my subject that just didn't look good. To fix that, grab a soft brush, make your foreground color black, and just go over the edges of the subject to remove that white outline. Once the selection looks good, duplicate your subject layer. We're going to use this duplicate to smooth out the skin. Basically, this is where the retouching starts. With the duplicate layer selected, go up to the develop button in your contextual bar. If you used Photoshop before, this is similar to the camera raw filter. Then go into the details tab and turn on noise reduction. Set luminance all the way up to 100% and then lower the luminance details. That combo will make the skin super smooth. Once that's done, click develop in the top left and then hit the mask button. Now invert the mask so we can control exactly where the smoothing goes. Use a soft brush to paint over the areas you actually want to smooth, basically just the skin. Avoid hair, facial details like mustaches, or any areas that should stay sharp. For example, this subject has a little mustache. I skip over that completely. You only want to hit the skin itself. I also avoid the natural creases or dimples in the face, like where he's smiling. That's important because later on, during dodging and burning, I'll use those areas to add depth and shape back in. If you smooth those out now, the face will look flat later. So now the skin looks clean and smooth, but the face still doesn't quite pop yet. That's where we move to the next step. To make the face really come to life, we're going to brighten and clean up the teeth and eyes. Start by creating a vibrance adjustment layer. Set both vibrance and saturation all the way down to -100%. That's going to completely desaturate the layer. Don't worry, this is on purpose. Next, create a layer mask. Then invert the mask. That way, nothing is affected until we start painting. Now, take your soft brush and carefully paint only over the teeth and eyes. That's it, nothing else. Be especially careful around the lips and the eyelids. If any of the desaturation goes outside those areas, clean it up. You want to hit only the teeth and the eyes. This step is what gives that polished thumbnail ready look. It makes the face pop without overdoing it. So at this point, we've upscaled the image, smoothed the skin, and brought the teeth and eyes to life. And that's how we start building that clean, professional thumbnail retouch look, the kind that actually stands out. So now that we brought some life back into the teeth and the eyes, we're not done yet, because this next step is what actually makes those details shine. We're going to take that same base adjustment and push it one level further to really bring the light and contrast to life. Create a curves adjustment layer and switch it to the alpha channel. That's the one that controls your light and dark values. From there, just raise the light value slightly to brighten things up. Now, go back to your vibrance adjustment layer and control plus click on the mask. That'll automatically load the selection you made earlier, basically the teeth and the eyes area. Back on the curves adjustment layer, add a layer mask and then invert it, just like before. Now you can paint over the teeth and the eyes again. This time, you're boosting the brightness and making them really stand out. The strength of this effect totally depends on how much you increase those curves. If it's too intense, just lower the opacity. For me, 60% look perfect. Still natural, but with a noticeable effect. Alright. Now the teeth and the eyes look clean and bright, but this next step is where the entire face comes together. This is where we start dodging and burning. And honestly, this is the part that gives the whole image that professional 3D depth you see in thumbnails. We'll start with burning, which simply means darkening the shadow areas to give more depth and contrast. This is where those darker parts we left untouched earlier, like the creases around the cheeks and nose, finally come into play. For burning, I used a levels adjustment layer. Here's exactly what I did. I brought the black levels up to 11% and increased the gamma. Then I inverted the mask, just like we did before. That means nothing is visible until we've painted in. Now, carefully paint over the shadow areas. Things like the creases around the cheeks, under the nose, maybe a bit around the eyes or any wrinkles that naturally catch shadow. The goal is to exaggerate those darker spots just enough to bring back dimension. Once the shadows are in place, it's time to balance them out with the highlights, and that's where dodging comes in. For dodging, I used the curves adjustment layer again. Same principle, I just went into the alpha channel and increased the light values. Then, like before, I added a layer mask, inverted it, and used a soft brush to paint over the highlighted areas, basically anywhere the light naturally hits the face. Think of the forehead, nose bridge, cheekbones, and maybe the chin, those bright spots that make the face feel alive. At this point, the light and contrast is working together. Shadows are deeper, highlights are cleaner, but there is one last subtle touch that really makes everything pop. Create one more curves adjustment layer, same setup, increase the light values, add a mask and invert it, and this time go around the edge of the face, mainly along the hairline and the forehead edge. Basically, you're tracing the outline of the face with light. It's a small effect, but it gives this beautiful edge glow that makes the face stand out against the background. At first, this effect might look a bit exaggerated. Mine definitely did. So I just lowered the opacity to about 50% and that blended it in perfectly. And that's where everything really starts to come together. The skin is smooth, the teeth and eyes are alive, and the lighting now has depth. In the next part, we'll refine it even further and talk about how to make all these adjustments blend seamlessly into a single, natural looking image. Alright, so now we got the lighting, shadows, and highlights all balanced out. This next part is all about bringing out the natural color and brightness in the eyes. Start by creating an HSL adjustment layer. Since my subject has brown eyes, what I did was increase the saturation to about 50%. Then, as usual, invert the mask. That way nothing is affected until we start painting. Now take a soft brush and paint only below the eyes, right under the iris area. This enhances the natural color and makes the eyes look bright and more defined without overdoing it. Next, create an exposure adjustment layer. Increase the exposure, make it quite a bit brighter because we'll control where it applies next. Then invert the mask and only paint on the lower parts of the iris. One small but powerful tweak. So at this point, all the local adjustments, skin, lighting, teeth, and eyes are in place. Now we're ready for the final polish where everything comes together and pops as one cohesive image. What I do next is I merge everything into one single layer, and now we're going to take this merged version and give it the final pass to really enhance all the work we've just done. Click on the merge layer and then in the contextual bar, hit develop. Inside develop, I start fine tuning. Clarity around 50%. Contrast about 10%, and just adjust the saturation and vibrance to taste. And I lowered the temperature to around -20% to cool things down just slightly. These small tweaks make all the difference. They enhance the details, sharpen the textures, and unify all the adjustments you've made. Now, keep in mind, this part is going to look different for everyone. Every photo has different lighting, skin tones, shadows, and color balance, so there's really no single formula here. What matters is that you think about what you want to achieve. In this case, because it's face retouching for thumbnails, you're aiming for smooth skin, strong contrast, and punchy, vibrant colors. If you're not sure how far to go, grab a thumbnail that you're inspired by and study it. Look at how the contrast feels, how saturated the skin is, how the eyes stand out, and then use that as your reference when dialing in your final look. Once you're happy with it, just click the check mark at the top to apply everything. And that's it. So at this point, we've done a lot of retouching. But here's the thing, this next part is what really makes your thumbnail stand out. We're moving beyond just face retouching. This step is all about making your entire thumbnail pop, creating that glow, contrast, and energy that instantly grabs attention. For the background, I actually went to ChatGPT and had it generate one for me, something with texture and a dark tone. The reason I went dark is simple. I want maximum contrast between my subject and the background, especially once we add the glow effect later. Once I had the background, I rescaled it to 1920 by 1080 or whatever size fits your canvas. That's your base. Next, it's time to decide what color you want your glow to be. For me, that's orange because it's part of the Split Second channel's brand identity. Oh, and by the way, if you've gotten value from this so far, make sure to like the video and subscribe. It really helps. Now, in Affinity, create a pixel layer. You'll find it in your layers panel. Grab your chosen color and make sure your brush settings are right. Opacity 100%, flow 50%, and the hardness at 0. Then just click once behind your subject to create a soft glow. I actually clicked twice to intensify it a bit more. That gives you a color glow, but to make it feel more realistic and vibrant, we're going to add a white glow behind that. Create another pixel layer and name it white glow. Do the exact same thing, just click behind your subject again. If you need to resize it, don't grab the eraser, just press V to select the layer and then resize it directly on your canvas. If you hold shift, it'll scale freely, not proportionally, so you can stretch or shape it however you want. Once it looks right, change the blend mode to add. That instantly gives you that clean, bright edge lighting around your subject. Now comes the fun part, the rim light on the subject. Start by duplicating the merge layer, the one we used for the develop adjustments earlier, and if you still have a mask on it, rasterize the layer first before moving forward. Scroll down in your layers panel and click on FX to open the layer effects. Then go to inner glow. Now adjust it until it feels right. For me, 38% intensity and a 50 pixel radius look perfect. You can play with it a bit. The key is to keep it subtle but visible. Once you've got that right, add a layer mask, invert it, and then gently paint around the edges of your subject. That's how you create that rim lighting, that soft glow hugging the side of your subject that really separates them from the background. Now, for the bloom effect, which is what gives that realistic cinematic light spill, create a new layer and use the same color you use for your main glow. In my case, that's orange. You're going to paint softly where you want that light to spread over the subject, like the light is actually glowing onto him. And to make it interact properly with the subject, clip the bloom layer to your subject layer. In Affinity, just drag the bloom effect over the layer you want to clip it to, and it'll automatically attach. This makes the glow feel natural, like it's part of the lighting in the scene, not just sitting on top of it. It's that small detail that turns a good thumbnail into a professional one. In the next part, we'll bring it all together with some final finishing touches. First, create a curves adjustment layer. Now, depending on what color you're going for, the setting will be a bit different. For me, I wanted a warm orange tone. So here's what I did. I increased the reds and then I pulled down the blue line to bring in some yellow, and that gave me the perfect orange glow. The reason we do this is to add color to the parts of the subject that would naturally catch light. Think of it in 3D, anywhere that sticks out or catches illumination, like the neck, the cheekbones, and the edge of the face. I use this curves layer to paint over those areas, adding that nice subtle orange warmth that looks like light wrapping around the skin. I did end up lowering the opacity a bit because I didn't want it to be too in your face, pun intended, just enough to sell the effect without making it look fake. Alright, now the next trick is really interesting. It's the one that gives that glowing, finished look that makes the whole thumbnail pop off the screen. Start by creating 2 pixel layers. Select both of them and group them together. On the first pixel layer, we're going to make it completely black. To do that, click on the layer, set your foreground color to black, then hold Alt and press backspace. That fills the whole layer instantly. Now, set the blend mode of the group to color dodge. That'll let the bright part shine through beautifully. Next, create a gradient map adjustment layer, and this is where we build the actual glow tones. In your gradient map, make 4 points. The first should always be black, the last should be white, and the 2 middle points will be your color tones. For me, that's orange, so I went from black, dark orange, bright orange to white. To get the darker shade, I just copied the hex code of my main orange and lowered the brightness until it looked bright. That gives you that smooth transition from deep tone to highlight. Once you got your gradient set up, clip the gradient map to the second pixel layer, not the black one, but the one above it, and then set your foreground color to white and start painting on the second layer. This is where the glow magic happens. As you paint, you'll see the smooth, colorful light effect that gives everything a soft, cinematic glow. Go around the edge of your subject, especially the neck, cheeks, and clothing folds, but don't overdo it. Think of how light naturally wraps around surfaces. If the light hits folds or raised parts, paint a little there too. I also added a bit of glow to the face just to tie everything together. Then I refined the edges because the brush can sometimes leave those round soft ends, so I shaped them into points, making the highlights look more realistic. After that, I went over the subject again, focusing on the outer rim, making it slightly brighter to really emphasize that edge light. Once all that looked good, I merged everything together into one final layer. Then I opened that merge layer in develop mode again for the finishing touch. There, I added a bit of grain for texture and increased the contrast slightly to pull everything together. And that's basically it. The final glow, gradient, and rim lighting that makes your thumbnail pop. It's the combination of clean retouching, soft glows, and subtle light play that gives it that professional, almost cinematic look. Thanks for watching. If this helped, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me what you want to see next. And if you want to go deeper, join the waitlist for my thumbnail course. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. My name is Marcus, and I see you back in a split second. Peace.